Okay, here we have another ACT science passage. And here is a very typical kind of thing you'll see in the ACT science. They'll give you some kind of little drawing showing what the experiment looked like, and then they'll give you a couple of graphs or a couple of tables to go along with it with keys to show you what the different things are. So this study, it was 3 studies examined how the volume of runoff from melting ice is affected by wind speed and by sand beneath the ice. In a lab kept at 18 degrees, runoff was collected from a plastic box containing melting ice. The box was tilted at 10 degrees and had horizontal openings in its lower end. After flowing through the openings, the runoff fell into a trough and was conveyed to a measuring device. Okay, easy enough. Study 1, in each of the first 3 or 4 trials, the following steps were carried out. 30 centimeters deep layer of sand was placed in the box. 30 centimeters of ice was put on top of it. A fan was turned on to blow air at a constant speed. Number 4, for the next 600 minutes, the volume of runoff collected over each 20-minute period was measured. The wind speed was 2.5, 1.0 and 0.5 meters per second in the first, second and third trials respectively. In the fourth trial, all steps except step 3 were carried out. That means the fan was not turned on. The results of the 4 trials are shown in figure 1. So we see them here, the different wind speeds. There's 3 different wind speeds, and yellow is 0, that's no wind. And then study 2, the second trial of study 1 was repeated, then the second trial of study 1 was repeated again, except that step 1 was omitted, so they didn't put in the sand. And here we have the sand layer and without the sand layer, with the wind being kept constant. Right, so let's see a bit answering these questions. So the researchers conducting the studies chose to use a box made of a type of plastic rather than of wood to ensure that all of the water from the melting ice would flow from the box and into the trough. The researchers most likely made that choice because the type of plastic, unlike wood, is F. porous and permeable and therefore incapable of absorbing water. Well, both of those are wrong. It's not porous. It's non-porous and impermeable, yes, and therefore incapable of absorbing water. Oh, I should have scrapped that one out rather. Yes, that one's right. Oh, hang on. I think I've lost my pen. I have. That one's right, right? Plastic is non-porous and impermeable, which means it won't absorb any of the water, so the measure will be accurate. If they'd used wood and the wood had absorbed some of the water, then you're not going to get a very accurate measurement. And the first question is always very easy, so don't overthink it. It is as easy as it seems. 35. Suppose study 2 had been repeated, except in a lab kept at -1 degree Celsius. The total volume of runoff measured over the 600 minutes in the repeated study would most likely have been, well, if it's -1 degrees, that's below freezing, so it'd probably be ice. So you're not going to get much runoff from ice. A, it would be near or at 0, yes, because -1 degrees is below the freezing point of water. Yeah. And the other answers are near or at 0. That's correct because -1 degree is above. No, that's why that's wrong. And then greater than and greater than, both of those are rubbish. Okay, 36. According to the results of study 1, for which of the wind speeds did the runoff volume per 20 minutes decrease to 0 from its maximum value before 500? All right, let me see if I can increase this a little bit. So here's number 1. All we have to do is before 500. So 500 is right here, so it's this line here. And it's asking which ones got to 0 before that. Well, you can see that the blue one and the yellow one carry on, right? The blue one and the yellow one are after that 500 point. So this one and this one, they didn't, so it's these two, 1 and 2.5, and we find that in answer choice J. All right, and the 37. Compare the results of the 2 trials in study 2. All right. In which trial did the volume of runoff per 20 minutes reach a greater maximum value? Okay. And in which trial did the volume of runoff per 20 minutes decrease to 0 from the maximum value in the shorter amount of time? All right, so we've got 2 things, greater maximum and shorter time to 0. We've got with sand and without sand. Right, so reach a greater maximum value. All right, well, that's obviously here. It's the greatest maximum value, and that one corresponds to without sand, which means we can get rid of A and B. And now the second one is decreased to 0 in a short amount of time. Well, this one here you can see gets to 0 right here. This one with the sand goes to 500 before it gets to 0, so it would be without sand and without sand, and that would be answer choice D. Okay, question 38. The volume of runoff measured at 200 minutes in study 1 for the 4 wind speeds is best represented by which of the following graphs? Probably the easiest or the quickest way to do this is to find the minimum and the maximum. So we're going to look at 200 minutes. So that means we're looking at this line right here. All right, the minimum is the red one. That's 2.5. So which ones of these graphs, right, has 2.5 as the minimum? So F does, so we can keep that in. G does not. It's close, but it doesn't. H, no. And J. All right, so we've got it down to those two. And this one has 0.5 and 1, and this has 0.5. This is 0 and 0.5 is the tallest. This has 0.5 and 1. So which one is it? 0 is yellow. So yellow is here, and that's definitely below the other two. So it's we need 1 and 0.5. We need the green and the blue. So that's 0.5 and 1 are the tallest. 0.5 and 1, no, that's the wrong one. 0.5 and 1. 0.5 and 1 are the tallest. This is the shortest. So we get rid of that one, and our answer is J. 39. Which factor was varied in study 1 but kept the same in study 2? Alright, so in study 1, obviously in study 1 they varied the wind speed, right? So wind speed was varied in study 1, but it was kept the same in study 2 because it says the second trial of study 1 was repeated, and then the second trial of study 1 was again repeated. In the second trial, the wind speed was 1. So they've kept that the same. The wind speed is the same, but they changed the sand. So it would be wind speed was changed in study 1. It was varied and not in the other one. Right, based on the diagram, okay, let's get to the diagram, and the description of study 1, which of the following expressions would most likely be used to calculate the volume of the sand layer in the plastic box before chipped ice was placed in? Alright, so the volume was going to be length times width times the height. So we've got the length and the width, because we've got the length is 120, the width is 60, we just need the height. And the height of what we're looking for? Sand layer. So it was 30 centimeters of sand. So it will be 30 by 60 by 120. And that one is G. And that is that passage done.